Hi boys and girls, welcome back to Mr Brakefield Reads. It is Wednesday and of course we're getting straight back into our chapter book, The Monster of Shiversands Cove. We're up to chapter 8 at the moment. So chapter 7 was all about Harry the Horrible, who is a fairy, and it is Magnus's fairy. So anyway, we found out a little bit more about him. He's not a nice fairy at all. He's not in the slightest bit nice. But anyway, the next chapter is called Sunset Swim. I sat quaking in the sitting room. Then I noticed a big box with a big label on the front which read, Shiversands Cove, Visitor Information. The box had leaflets inside, lots of leaflets, so I started sorting through them. They all showed things to do around the area, things that did not involve the sea. I made a big pile. We could hire bikes, go on forest trails, visit a working farm, a woolen mill, a chocolate factory, make some pottery, all sorts. Yes, that's what I could do. Turn this into an activity holiday. I could keep us busy one day at a time, and nowhere near the sea. I grabbed a leaflet and went to see Dad. Dad, I said, waving the leaflet in his face, can we go here tomorrow and take a picnic? Next morning I sat watching out of the car window as we drove further and further away from the sea, further and further inland. And there it was. Up on a tall hill, towering over the town, was a castle. Cleaston Hill Castle. Cleaston Hill Castle was big and square, with lots of battlements. Some of it was ruins, some of it not. Claudia might be here already, said Magnus, jiggling in his car seat. Claudia and her cousin. The castle plan had got bigger overnight. Now Claudia was coming too, and Claudia's cousin, who was staying somewhere in Light Sands Bay, and their mums and dads. A cousin, said Magnus, clasping his hands. Claudia has a cousin, and I am going to meet the cousin today, at the castle. Magnus was jiggling with excitement. Magnus loves cousins. We have 5, 2 toddlers, who wreck things, 2 4-year-olds, who hunt fairies, and Ned, who is also my age. Ned is the only good thing about having cousins. I just hoped Claudia had a Ned for a cousin. We parked near the castle, got tickets, and then walked through a big stone archway onto a wide green lawn with the castle battlements stretching right around it. There were a group of people in the middle of the lawn stretching out a picnic rug. There she is, shrieked Magnus, waving and hurtling himself toward them. There's Claudia. I could see Claudia too, and I could see some grown-ups, and, oh no, I stopped and gaped. That girl standing there, she must be Claudia's cousin. She was also Pearl Pankhurst. Pearl's grown-ups started shrieking at Dad, and Dad started shrieking back, all about being new neighbours back home and now meeting here, about what an astonishing coincidence it was, and about how they could not believe it. Well, nor could I. It just wasn't fair. Dad was beaming at me. Someone your own age at last, he said, as if being the same age as Pearl made us friends, which it didn't. Then Dad waved his hand. Explore, he said. Have fun. Fun? Where was the fun in being stuck here with Pearl? I stomped off. Pearl stomped after me. I'm not happy to see you either, she said, scowling. But if we're going to explore, let's call a truce and start again. I turned and gaped. A truce? Going exploring, I said. There is no truce, and we are not going exploring. I am. I hadn't finished. For your information, I said, a good neighbour, such as my friend Rory, has a sense of humour. If Rory had fallen into my trap, he would have found it funny. Now Pearl had her hands on her hips. Well, she said, for your information, a good neighbour like my friend Ruby, who lived 4 doors down from me, would not make traps in stupid places like on a path. Course she wouldn't, I said. Girls don't build traps. There they are, both feuding and arguing with one another. Neither very happy to be in each other's company. For some reason, me saying that made Pearl's jaw drop and her eyes narrow. Is that so? She said. Then she leaned right in my face. For your further information, she hissed, your trap was not a good trap. Your trap was a beginner trap. I could have done that trap way better." Now I could feel my jaw drop, the cheek of it. Pearl telling me, an expert trap builder, that my trap was a beginner trap. She hadn't finished. She jabbed a finger at me. "And another thing," she said, "your den, it could be twice as good as it is, and disguised, if you build it where I would build a den." I glared at her as hard as I could. "And stop glaring," she snapped. "It makes you look like a gorilla." "A gorilla? Now I like gorillas. In fact, they're probably my second favourite after whales. But I did not look like a gorilla." So I stomped off to go exploring on my own, and Pearl stomped off and started running around exploring with Magnus and Claudia and helping them look for castle fairies. I was miserable all day long, fed up, lonely, missing Rory, hating this holiday, and most of all worrying about the sea monster. Even if today was okay, what about all the other days? But today wasn't okay, because later that afternoon the grown-ups decided on one final plan for the day. Back to Lightsands Bay for a swim. The sun was low and in the sky when we got to Lightsands Bay, and the water looked dark, very dark. "Dad," I said, "I want to dig." I got out the spade because I knew one thing: I was not swimming. Magnus was swimming though, and Dad and everyone else, everyone except Pearl. "Mum," she said, "I want to read back at our apartment, out on the balcony." Pearl and her grown-ups had an apartment in a big building right on the promenade, so Pearl got the keys and marched off, nose in the air, as she walked past me. A minute later she appeared out on a second-floor balcony looking straight over the beach. She had a book in her hand and she waved down at her mum. Then Magnus and Claudia started waving too, but not at Pearl, at the cliff top. They were jumping up and down, clapping their hands, waving and pointing. I turned. Oh no. There was Harry, a tiny shape with sparkling golden wings, zooming over the cliff top from Shiversands Cove, zooming towards Lightsands Bay. "Harry!" shouted Magnus, jumping up and down and waving. "Harry! Cooey! We're over here!" "We're going swimming, Harry!" bellowed Claudia. "You come too!" All the grown-ups started making gooey faces, the sort of grown-ups make when little kids do things they find enchanting, like pretending to have a fairy friend. Then Claudia wagged her finger at me. "Stan, don't be horrid to Harry today," she said. She turned to the grown-ups. "Stan doesn't like our fairy," she told them. "Stan shouts at him." And all the grown-ups looked at me. No gooey faces anymore, just frowns. I could not concentrate on my digging. My eyes kept straying down to the sea, scanning the horizon, jittering, staring at Magnus, splashing about, holding onto his bodyboard, kicking his legs while Dad pulled him through the water, staring out over the water. Here came Harry. He was zooming straight towards me, little nostrils flaring, sniffing all around my head. But I was ready for him. I had leftovers from the picnic in my hand. A big chunk of pepperoni. I wafted it right in front of his small, sniffing nose. Harry licked his lips and went to grab it, but I was too quick. I ran off with it. I hurtled down the beach and then chucked the pepperoni out at sea, as far and as high as I could. Off Harry went, swooping out over the water towards the pepperoni chunk. Then, just as he snapped it up, I spotted something. Something that was swimming round the end of Tide Island, swimming straight towards Lightsands Bay, swerving fast through the water, swerving towards Dad and Magnus. I got a cold, cold feeling. Dad and Magnus were right in its path, backs to the sea monster, splashing through the water. I ran. I hurled myself as fast as I could through the water, out towards Dad, towards Magnus. I grabbed hold of Magnus, dragged him off his bodyboard and back towards the beach. Then I tumbled him onto the sand. "Get out of the water!" I shrieked at Dad. "The sea monster! It's heading this way!" Okay. So, that was chapter 8. I wonder what happens in chapter 9. I wonder if Pearl and Stan might get along after all. I wonder if perhaps the family will be safe on the beach with the sea monster heading towards them. Either way, we'll find out in chapter 9. And that will be tomorrow on Thursday, because I'm going to put an extra video up tomorrow as I missed one last week. All right. Anyway, see you then. But before that, stay safe and happy reading. Bye, boys and girls.